Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy and joining me, Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
So, we've been chatting about where to go, and I guess we're going to go one by one through the different gates. It's something that we haven't really dove into. We've touched on all of them when we've talked about other topics, but
Hmm.
so I was teasing you yesterday and I said, oh, well, you could just mix it up. And I guess you've decided to do that. So people have to tune in every week. They're not going to be in order. so, the
Well,
first, wow, a surprise.
yeah, we have covered a lot of ground.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like, oh, how do we, um, but there's great depth to human design. So what do we do next? Where do we go
Hmm.
next? So I'm not saying that I'm going to do this every week, but
Hmm.
it gives us lots of room to explore.
Yes, and play. So you chose to start with the gate of values, gate 50, the cauldron, cosmic order. So can you tell us a little bit about what that even means? 'Cause
Yeah. I
Richard Rudd
mean,
uses cool words.
I let the universe pick what we started with, and this is what
Mhm,
it chose for us. Interesting, because one of the keywords is cosmic order.
mhm,
But let's start with looking at it from the human design perspective. Gate
mhm,
50 is in the spleen, so that means it's one of the attributes that ensures our survival as a species. And
mhm,
because it's a tribal gate, it ensures um, it works towards the preservation of our families and tribes. It's called the gate of values.
mhm,
Um, and this really, Kris, is the energy of the lawgiver. This is the one who um, shows how and where to apply the rules for caring. And as those are applied consistently, it becomes a source for our moral conditioning.
mhm.
Yeah, so I find it really interesting. I don't have this gate myself, but I'm always attracted to it. It's kind of the tough love gate in a way. It feels quite stern to me.
Yeah,
Um,
and looking at the people that you put down here, it's like, yeah, I can see that. Like, these people are very to the point and straightforward, and but they do it from a place of love, right? Yeah.
yes, it's
Mhm.
like the good father energy. You
Yeah.
know, it evaluates what is corrupt or unjust, what's
Mhm.
unnecessary or self-serving, what needs to be challenged or changed in terms of the structures that we live within.
Mhm.
So it has a lot to do with believing in law and order,
Mhm.
but if the laws aren't serving us, then it also says this has to change.
Mhm.
So that's why, the list includes, of course, examples of people that we don't know in common.
Mhm.
And my strongest feeling of these people is, they were a couple of my teachers.
Mhm.
And there was this way that they would set boundaries that made things safe.
Mhm.
So boundaries are a big issue these days. We usually talk about them in emotional relationships.
Right.
Um, but boundaries, there are other kinds of boundaries too that we need to set for ourselves so that we function well in society.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like traffic lights and traffic rules and things like that, those are all, boundaries, that we're supposed to follow in order for the betterment of everybody, right? Um,
correct.
what I find, what came to me was what a deadly combination of having 50 and 58. So the 58
Mm,
being the one that doesn't mind going up against authority, but you also have this gate of values. So there's this sense of, what's right and what the law is, and the universal law, sorry.
Yes.
versus not wanting to go up against the authority of the, system that we have in place right now. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's funny you say that because I was thinking about that exact combination.
Hmm.
Because I mean, 58 really is about joy. It's about vitality, and it says, love life so much that I can't bear to see it be um, curtailed or hampered in any way. And so, if I see something that's interfering with your ability to live joyfully and enthusiastically, I'm going to challenge it.
Yeah.
So, if those two were together, it would be like the sternness
Hmm.
and the sort of attunement to cosmic order,
Yeah.
along with that joy,
Yeah. Because what came to me is there is somebody in there in the list that has both. And I'm like,
Ah,
oh, interesting. Yeah. I
yes.
was just like putting that together. Yeah. So
And I
cool.
mean, gate 50 is part of what we would, the incarnation cross of laws. So that gives you
Mhm.
another sense of what it's about, right?
Right.
One of its mystical names is the guardian. And,
Mhm.
who doesn't love, a benevolent guardian? Um,
Mhm.
of course, we can project on the 50. It's like if we have negative feelings towards authority, this is where we can segue into Richard Rudd's
Right.
way of him expressing, his
Mhm.
thoughts on, this gene key.
Mhm.
He says that at the shadow level, it's corruption. And so,
Mhm.
that makes an interesting amount of sense
Mhm. The
because
opposite.
when,
Mhm.
well, yeah, see, opposites, the shadow can, yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point there. The shadow, we often get fooled by the shadow because we don't see the gift in it because we think it feels like an
Mhm.
opposite, right?
Mhm.
So um, when we live in fear and our fear-based mind rules our life, then what happens is that the way we translate reality is corrupted. It's kind of like, think of a
Mhm.
virus in a computer program. That virus has corrupted the perceptions of it has corrupted the perceptions, and corruption is the result, the breakdown of order.
Mhm.
So this is where, of course, the negative side can manifest in this gate, and that's why we sometimes have a distrust of this energy.
Mhm.
One way to look at it is that the fears that we have around this survival gate, the gate of values, will often lead us to imagine that there's some kind of boogeyman. We get caught up in conspiracy theories, for instance. That's one of the results. Is that fear
Mhm.
that we are secretly being controlled. And I'm not talking about the truth value of that because there's definitely controlling aspects to society, but the fear of it is what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Make
Mhm.
sense?
The fear of being controlled.
Yes.
Mhm.
Um, so when it rises to the gift frequency, though, it's something quite different because this
Mhm.
is where we begin to feel like beyond hierarchy, there is a way that we could all live in harmony. And the I Ching points to it. Taoist teachings, the Tao Te Ching points to it. Probably in some ways, some of the Eastern traditions have pointed to this in more effectively. This idea that there's a cosmic order, if we, in a sense, tap into the naturalness of things. So, in that perspective, somebody with gate 50 could actually be someone who has a great responsibility to the world because they have the capacity to, in a sense, vibrate in such a way that groups could become very healthy.
Mhm.
In that case, all of the hidden agendas would be revealed.
Mhm.
And we would move into more of a Richard Rudd loves these fancy words like heterarchy. Heterarchy
Mhm.
is an alternative to hierarchy. Heterarchy would be a society in which the creative empowerment of the individual was valued. And out of that
Mm.
valuing, there each person would be trusted by the society. So, in a sense, that
Mhm.
trust would allow the blossoming of the gifts of that person, and it would create a healthy group dynamic where it was something other than hierarchical. It would become,
But that's what we see happening right now, right?
say more about that.
Like, well, just that people are all starting to look for self empowerment and looking for developing their gifts and looking for that best expression of themselves. So we see in society all of these coaching programs and
Right.
empowerment programs and things like that coming up because society is asking for them, right? So I find it interesting that it's actually in the chart, like that it's actually
Yes.
part of the whole
Well,
system.
I don't know. I might suggest a somewhat different spin on that, looking at the same thing. I would say that individuals are demanding it, and then people are emerging to fulfill that need. When we have a society, that is when our schools and our institutions actually start to make that a priority, that's when we'll have a hierarchy. So once that impulse is embodied within the structures of our
Hmm.
society, that's when
Yeah,
we would have that hierarchy. But this is
yeah.
the
Like I
beginning, so I
agree.
agree with you there.
Yeah, I agree that it's the individuals, but the individuals doing the coaching programs and stuff, that is their way of stepping into themselves, and therefore it inspires others, and then others are going, oh yeah,
Hmm.
and then that's how evolution takes place and changes, right? It starts with one person, and then another person goes, oh, that's really great, I'm going to do that because that feels good, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and then
Yes.
eventually it becomes so demanded that the systems like the schools and the government and all of those things has to change with it, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
So it's exciting to see that, as you say, bubbling up more and more.
Hmm.
And then, of course, at the highest level, at the citic level, this is where we talk about cosmic order. This is where we talk about states of awareness where we feel like we can feel music. We feel how everything is meant to go it is already a beautiful symphony. But I mean,
Hmm.
at the level of most of our perceptions, we don't experience it that way.
Right.
And this is where we have that myth of the chosen ones as well, the ones who
Hmm.
stand up to be guardians of society, to guard and
Hmm.
maintain and preserve the cosmic order so that that symphony is maintained in its best possible form.
This is like everybody going, oh, the light workers, the light workers. They're the ones that are
Hmm.
taking care of everybody and everything, right? Yeah.
Yes. So it's a grand vision. And the 50,
Hmm.
it's like it's not always easy. Harmony is the word for the city, and equilibrium
Hmm.
is the word for the gift.
Hmm.
So it's like I am endlessly fascinated by this, Kris, because it
Hmm.
removes so much fear from me and has removed so much fear from me in my life. The idea that whatever I see in myself as a negative, as a shadow, has, should I heal it, work with it, lift it up to a higher vibration, it
Hmm.
is linked to a gift.
Hmm.
So what this does is for me, it takes away the fear of admitting that I have shadows that I'm working with.
Well, I find it interesting because the mentor that we work with, I mean, that's one of the things that she talks about is the shadow is actually the gift, you know?
Mhm.
And so in uplifting that shadow and healing it, then and using it in a proper container or a proper place, then it becomes a gift. But when you're
Yes.
using it in an unbalanced way, then it becomes, harmful.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's to have that understanding completely changes the way you look at your own self.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's why we're going through here. It's kind of like, each of us has 26 activations in our chart because there are 26 planets in a
Mm-hmm.
body graph. And some of those are in the same gate. So, in effect, most of us have something like between 20 and 26 specific gate activations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there are 64 total within the context of human expression. And I really feel that it's a useful thing to seed our consciousness with awareness of the ones that we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have gate 50, but I feel and I have a relationship to gate 50 because I know what it feels like and I've met it
Mm-hmm.
in in the energy of people that have impacted me. So that's part of what I think makes an examination
Well, it's
of all of
understanding
the
the other
gene keys.
people. Yeah,
Yes.
like because now you appreciate and you understand why that person is that way. Oh, they were designed that way. Oh, I see what role that plays. Versus judging it. And I think that's the point
Yes.
that all of us have to get to, right? Is that some people are operating in that shadow side, right? So we tend to not like it very much.
Hmm.
But when it operates in the acidic side, then it becomes a gift to society and to everyone.
Yes. And we all, goodness knows, in this time that is such a pressure cooker,
Mm-hmm.
um, what we're looking for is people who will step up to fulfill their responsibilities, whatever God has implanted within them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of an insight that the 50 might say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, by in Canada, my dad used to say this all the time, and he was a politician, but he was very, very aware and grateful for living in Canada. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, you know what? The world is not a perfect place, but we're really lucky to live in Canada. And so the 50 has that attitude of these are privileges that we've been born with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, because of those privileges being offered to us, we have a responsibility to offer something back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's kind of an energy of the 50 as well,
Yeah.
is that idea of what are you going to contribute?
Mm-hmm. If not who, if not when, yeah, who's going to do it? Yeah.
Or
So
what was it JFK said? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
I think this is a perfect segue into talking about, starting to understand each other and the different aspects of people through human design. Is your group that you're starting to offer at the end of this month? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you can see, if you start to think about, say, a particular gate, and from even the two perspectives, the human design perspective and the Richard Rudd perspective, a lot arises out of that because these are universal energies. So we've gone in. Kris and I have had a discussion about this morning. For your pleasure, hopefully. And this is the kind of thing that I aim to do in the group. I choose a topic, and perhaps we choose a topic that has come up in previous groups, and we look at it. and then we share our experiences around it. So how has this shown up in your experience? What in your life, how does the solar plexus express itself? So we pick a topic for focus, and then we run with it. We learn from each other. We take advantage of the group energy, the
Mm-hmm.
synergy of the group, which I'm particularly, that's one of my gifts, to work with groups and
Mm-hmm.
to bring a synergy from within those groups.
Mm-hmm.
So then it becomes this expanding, enriching, empowering process to be sharing and growing with each other in terms of the insights that we share.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the month, 30th,
The
that's
30th
when we're
at 6:30.
starting. So
Mm-hmm.
I hope you'll join us
Yes.
for that at Clair-i-tea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
So
still we're still kind of contemplating whether we can somehow be online and include online people for that.
mhm.
Haven't landed anywhere with that yet, but that's what's coming.
Yeah. So tickets are $22. You can get those through Eventbrite or here at the store. We really look forward to, people participating and joining in this because I think it's going to be very enlightening for many people. I think you'll get understandings not only about other people, but yourself as well. So, all right, Harwell, thank you so much for coming up with that offering. Thank you so much for your offerings today. And we hopefully that people gain some more insight into the gate of values. So join us next week at 9 a.m. Wednesday, and we'll say goodbye and God bless.